Thanks for listening to The Murder of My Family. But before you go any further, stop. I want to tell you about the amazing new immersive podcast app, Vodacast, that will allow you to experience this podcast and others in a way that you haven't been able to until now. Vodacast will provide you a deeper version of the show and allow you to view photos of the people and places we're talking about in this episode. You'll also get links for articles about the case. When you experience a podcast on Vodacast, you not only will be listening to your favorite podcast, but you'll be getting stories that come alive with supplemental digital content that allows you to have everything being discussed in the episode at your fingertips. If you're like me, after you listen to a podcast, you search for more details or photos of the people and events discussed in the episode. With Vodacast, it's all right there for you. So try Vodacast out today. Click the link in my show notes to learn more about Vodacast, or download the app today in the App Store and change the way you experience podcasts forever. That's Vodacast. Vodacast.
You're listening to The Murder in My Family, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including Missing Persons, Scene of the Crime, DNA ID, 3 Men and a Mystery, Malice, Zodiac Speaking, Riddle Me That, and All Things Crime. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its host, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss the murder in your family on this podcast, please be sure to visit themurderinmyfamily.com for more information. You can support this podcast by visiting patreon.com/The Murder in My Family. This episode may contain unsettling material or subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for joining me for episode 86 of The Murder of My Family. I'm your host, Mike Morford. In this episode, we'll be discussing the case of a deaf man named Matthew Calkins, whose gruesome murder in the Kansas City basement shocked his community, and it turns out that his death may be connected to another person's. We'll dive into Matthew's case after some quick housekeeping. Independent podcasts like this one depend on word of mouth to bring in new listeners, so if you find that you enjoy the show, please take a minute to rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcast. And be sure to introduce a friend of the show and invite them to listen. The Murder of My Family can continue to grow and reach a new audience. To learn more about the show or the cases we discuss, please visit themurderinmyfamily.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @MurderMyFam, or by searching for the Murder of My Family podcast on Facebook. If you'd like to support the show through a Patreon donation, it's always appreciated. And you can do so by visiting patreon.com/The Murder of My Family. Benefits of supporting the show on Patreon include early access to ad-free episodes of the show, plus bonus content not heard in regular episodes. Support may also include thank you cards, stickers, and more. If you prefer to, you can also support the show through a PayPal donation by visiting paypal.me/The Murder of My Family. In each episode, I'll give shout-outs to any new supporters. In this episode, I'd like to thank Arlene Harbison, and thank you to all the supporters that generously donate to help keep the show growing and improving. One last note. Please consider supporting any of the sponsors that you hear on The Murder of My Family, the way that those sponsors support the show. It's with our sponsors' support that this show can go on and continue to provide a platform to share these stories with you in every episode. Thank you. And now on with the show. Matthew Christopher Calkins was born on April 23, 1984, in Gardner, Kansas. Born profoundly deaf, he had started learning American Sign Language at just 9 months old. Matthew grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and he attended the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind for almost a decade. But Matthew's mom, Diane, wanted him to receive the best education he could, and she was impressed with the graduation rate at the Kansas School for the Deaf. So she made the big decision to sell the family home and to move to Kansas City so that Matthew could attend school there. When Matthew started at his new school, she could see that he was really excelling. In 2002, Matthew graduated from the Kansas School for the Deaf. After he graduated, Matthew took some vocational classes and lived with his mom in the Kansas City area. Matthew's friends and family describe him as adventurous, funny, sweet, and protective. They say he always stuck up for the underdog. Matthew's family recalls how tired he was, noting that everything had its place. He studied graphic arts and used his skills to make holiday cards, especially for his mother. He was raised Christian and was a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. Matthew enjoyed all holidays, but Christmas and Halloween were his favorites. He absolutely loved to decorate every year. Getting to interact with trick-or-treaters as he passed out candy each Halloween was also something Matthew loved. His favorite color was purple, a color that people wear to remember him. And friends that miss him recount Matthew as someone that always could cheer you up. On May 5, 2019, police were alerted to shots fired at a home in Kansas City, Missouri. The house where a weapon was fired from was the home that 30-year-old Colton Stock was living in. When police arrived at the scene, they discovered that the basement of the home was on fire, and they called the police department. As firefighters worked to extinguish the flames, they discovered the remains of Matthew Calkins underneath a burned blue tarp. But horribly, all that remained of Matthew was his torso. His head, arms, and legs were missing. An investigation later revealed that Matthew had been dismembered with an electric saw. It turns out that the police came to believe that the gunshots they responded to weren't related to the murder of 35-year-old Matthew Calkins, as he had been dead for some time before they came to the house, but instead may have been fired at 56-year-old Floyd Wood, a neighbor. Wood had been shot at and assaulted by Stock in the same basement. Floyd Wood was at Stock's house to look at a motorcycle, which was supposedly in the basement. Once he was down there, Floyd was shot at by Stock, but he managed to escape unhurt and ran to safety. Unfortunately, Matthew wasn't so lucky. Colton Stock had told Floyd in advance that his goal was to find Matthew and scare him over something that was allegedly reported to do with drugs. Matthew's friends said he would often go hang out in Stock's basement. It wasn't out of the ordinary for him. When the autopsy on Matthew was performed, it was revealed that he was shot twice. After he had been shot, he was dismembered and then set on fire. Police initially reported they didn't know a motive for Matthew's murder. On May 14th, Colton Stock was charged with the first-degree murder of Matthew Calkins. He's being held on a $1 million cash bond after pleading not guilty. Investigators were able to pull Colton's DNA off a revolver found at his home. The DNA was on the grip and the trigger, which is quite damning. A bullet that was removed from Matthew Calkins' body was found to be a forensic match to Colton's gun. Police fired a round from the gun and compared it to the bullet found in Matthew's body to produce a match. Authorities also pulled Home Depot surveillance footage and found that Colton Stock purchased the electric saw there that he used to dismember Matthew's body. The only witness that might be able to tie all this together, Floyd Wood, was unfortunately a victim of foul play himself, and has since passed away. On July 1st, 2019, Floyd was found dead in Claycomo, Missouri, under suspicious circumstances. But police wouldn't release his cause of death, and they haven't officially said whether he was murdered. Since the key witness to the case is now also dead, it may be hard for justice to actually be served for Matthew Calkins, and we may never know the full truth as Matthew's accused killer isn't talking. Matthew's mother, Diane, joined me to discuss her son's tragic and horrible murder, and it's clear that a void has been left in her life following this tragedy. That conversation is coming up in just a moment. Hey everyone, spring is here, and for many people, this is a time when we want to get out and get active. But for some of us, that's easier said than done, because often, things that have been weighing on us don't magically go away with the change of seasons. But the good news is, there is help, and that help is called BetterHelp. If there's something that's interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals, then BetterHelp Online Counseling just might be the right solution for you. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can connect in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient, and you can start communicating with a counselor in under 24 hours. This isn't self-help, it's professional counseling. Send a message to your counselor at any time. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, all without having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. BetterHelp can assist you with so many things, from trauma, depression, and anger issues, to LBGT matters, grief, stress, and so much more. Anything you share is confidential, and while BetterHelp isn't a crisis line, it is convenient, professional, and affordable. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener of The Murder in My Family, you'll get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp by visiting betterhelp.com/family. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Once again, go to BetterHelp, that's HELP.com/family, and you'll save 10% on your first month of BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by Every Plate, America's Best Value Meal Kit. Experience full plates and fuller wallets with America's Best Value Meal Kit. Every Plate makes home cooking easy and affordable as a much cheaper alternative to takeout, but just as delicious. Think of it this way. One meal from Every Plate is the same price as 1 cup of coffee. And best of all, it's delivered to your door hassle-free. Recipes come together in about 30 minutes. Definitely faster than a trip to the grocery store and starting a meal from scratch. Let's face it, there's a lot of meal kit services out there to choose from. But with Every Plate, you'll get great meals delivered to your door fresh and at a price that's more affordable than the competition. I just had the gooey stuffed pork burgers, and they were amazing. Now listeners of The Murder in My Family can try Every Plate for just $1.99 per meal, plus an additional 20% off your next 2 boxes by going to everyplate.com and entering code FAMILY199. Once again, go to everyplate.com and enter promo code FAMILY199 to try Every Plate for just $1.99 per meal, plus an additional 20% off your next 2 boxes. Hi, Diane, and thank you for being with us today to discuss your son Matthew's case.
Hi.
Your son was just 35 years old when he was found dead, and based on what's been published and the details that have come out in researching this case, it's just appalling and shocking what happened to him, and I can't imagine how you've been affected. And before we get into that awful stuff, can you tell us a little bit about Matthew and what he was like, some of your memories of him?
Sure. Matthew just turned 35. In fact, the last time I saw him was on his birthday. I had taken him to Dairy Queen for a sundae and a burger, and that was the last I saw of him. Matthew was deaf. He was born deaf. He was born in Arizona, in Tucson. Went through up to junior high school at the deaf school, and then we moved to Olathe, Kansas, where the deaf school had 100% graduation rate, and he flourished there. It was all in sign language. He had a quick. He was funny. He was a class clown a lot of times. He would take care of the underdog. If somebody was being picked on, he was a big kid, not fat, but just strong. He would protect the one that was being picked on. So I don't think he ever met anybody they didn't love him, except of course the guy that killed him. I love him dearly. His last words, we went to church on Easter Sunday. I guess I did see him after that, I'm sorry. Easter Sunday of that year, we went to the church where we belong. And on the program, he wrote prayer all the way across it. They didn't have an interpreter for him for the deaf, so we kind of did it ourselves. He was just a wonderful kid. He loved children, and his wife, unfortunately, did not have any. They were working on it when it all happened. He has an older brother, JD, that's been affected too.
Yeah, so the entire family is missing him, it sounds like.
Right. I still haven't cleared out Matthew's closet. Every time I go in there, it's just too hard to do.
Yeah, that's understandable. I don't think anyone could fault you for that.
He liked good clothes, too, so it's out of throwing away the good clothes that he has. I want to give them away, but I haven't done it yet.
Well, you mentioned a little bit He had just celebrated his birthday. You had gone out for Easter. What was going on around that time? Was everything okay? Did he have any problems with anyone that you knew of? Was he talking about any issues?
He was actually killed on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. That's the last, he'd gone to a birthday party. His friends were giving a birthday party. And he was old enough to go out. Him and his wife had separated. That's why he was back at the house. But his friends were going to give him a birthday party. And he did, in fact, sent me pictures of him at the party. And one of the pictures had the man that killed him, pictures with him. Like they were friends from Facebook. He had a drug problem. We had just gotten papers to send him to a deaf rehab center in Minnesota. And he was supposed to come home that weekend, Cinco de Mayo weekend, and fill out the paperwork. It was still sitting on my table when I found out he died. The man that killed him actually had called me and said, used his father's name. He lived in his father's house. And he had said to me, my name is Mark Stockton, he has a political position in Clay County. He goes, I want to take Matthew underneath my wing and teach him the tricks, and he can live with us for a while, because Clay County is like 50 miles away. And so I thought, well, that sounds like wonderful, it's a great thing. But it actually was the guy that killed him using his dad's information. It was really hard.
Was he saying that to give himself time to cover up what he had done?
I don't know. It was before he was actually murdered. They have a picture of him going into Home Depot, purchasing a saw, and he had the receipt in his pocket when they found the guy. He had Matthew's blood and skin on his jeans when they arrested him, and they came to my husband's and mine 15th anniversary was on the day after Cinco de Mayo. It was May 4th. And we had a big party planned at the club that we usually go to. New high heels, new dress, everything. Friends and family coming to this big party. Well, I worked a half a day at work and came home. And I guess the detectives they'd gone to 3 different places. I worked at Target Optical as the manager, and they were looking for me, and I'd already left. And nobody would give them my information, but they finally came to my home and asked for my DNA. And they told me that, they showed me a picture of Matthew's tattoo on his arm. And it was I can't remember what it was, but I know it was his tattoo. And they showed me a picture of it, and it was Matthew. And so, of course, they said, well, we found him, and he was shot twice. But they didn't tell me anything else. And then 4 days later, that Friday of the same week, they came to my house and told me that indeed the DNA checked out and it was Matthew. And I wanted to know where I could take the body. And they told me at that time there was no body, that they had dismembered him, beheaded him, and burnt his torso. So all we got was his torso back, which was cremated. And it's in a vase, a urn here. He didn't want to be, we had talked about that at one time. He didn't want to be cremated, but there really wasn't much left to bury.
The details of that are just awful.
In the police report, they talk about where all the blood was and how he covered it up and stuff and all that, and which I can't give to anybody because of the jury. But
sure,
I mean, you would imagine that anyhow. And the police detective that was taking care of it said it was one of the worst things he's ever seen in his 30 years of service.
Yeah, and I remember reading what was in the papers, and it sounded just awful. I assume that it was just out of the blue and shocking when the police showed up to you. Did they say, hey, we have a body, we think it might be your son, or did they just come right away asking for DNA, and how surprising was that to you?
Well, they were looking for me. They finally got my phone number from somebody. One of the managers gave my phone number to them. And they called me and asked me if I was Matthew's mother. And I said yes. And they said, we need to talk to you. So I had about 10 minutes to get myself together and call my husband and call my best friend. that something was wrong. I thought, well, did he kill someone or did he get killed? And because I knew he was experimenting with drugs, I knew that, that was something that could happen.
Yeah, and no parent wants to get a visit from police or a call from police asking about their child, sure.
And in fact, I had called, when they took my DNA, I'd called every day, do you have it, and they told me to stop calling, they'd get to me when it was ready. And I just felt that was so rude.
That's awful.
Then they told me on a Tuesday, that's when they came. And of course we canceled our party. It was like, now we always have that on our anniversary, that date that Matthew, they told us that he died. They told me that he didn't suffer though, so that was one thing. But he was shot twice in the back, and he couldn't hear, so I'm sure he was shocked. And I'm sure he was shocked in one of the pictures where he was in the picture with we call him the cockroach. I'm just going to use him, cockroach. He was in a picture with the cockroach. Matthew had both crucifixes, crosses I had given him for Christmas, like 2 times on his neck, and he had shorts on and a T-shirt. But he had his crosses on, and they didn't find those. And I'm hoping with when the trial comes that might be part of the evidence. I don't know. Yeah. But they never found the rest of his body, so his head and his arms and his legs are all missing.
Oh, that's awful. This started out because police were responding to someone reporting gunshots. Is that correct? And
right.
This house.
Floyd Wood was across the street, and he had gone. He was a known drug dealer too, so that was, from what I understand, he was. And somebody shot him 2 weeks after. Well, he was supposed to testify in a preliminary hearing, and he was shot or killed, knifed, I think, actually, the morning before. He was supposed to be there at 1:00 in the afternoon, and he was killed in the morning by somebody. And the police have dropped the case. And I don't have any, they're not going to give me any information because it's privacy and stuff like that.
So he is the one that alerts police that there's gunshots or something. The police show up.
Right. He took him downstairs to his basement to look at he tried to get him to look at the cockroach, tried to get Floyd look at a motorcycle because something was, and then he took a gun out, I guess, and started, threatening him.
And then Floyd wound up dead.
Cockroach was trying to get out the back door. And they found 2 guns, and then they found him. And he tried to say it was self-defense, but there was no DNA or anything on the guns from Matthew.
Yeah, so the police essentially called in the fire department because there was a fire down in the basement, is that correct?
Right, because he put Matthew's torso in a fire bin or something like that, and was trying to destroy what evidence there was.
So it's just a terrible scene, I imagine, for these police and firefighters to find all this there.
Yeah, they were expecting a fire. They were just like, we're just going to get a fire, and they found the body.
I don't think any parent can imagine their child dying in this way, especially a cruel way, and having been dismembered and stuff in the process. Any death of a child would be hard, but this seems like it would be especially hard to accept that this happened to your son. How difficult has this been for you?
Well, I went for about 6 months with just kind of that high, I guess you get it. It's not a high, but you're trying to get through stuff. And I ended up getting sick, and I ended up with Parkinson's disease, which can be caused from stress. And so now I have something that will be with me. I mean, eventually it might kill me. I don't know. Are you familiar with Parkinson's disease?
Yeah, so that's the
same thing that Michael J. Fox has.
Yeah, and it gets progressively worse.
It's mild, but they think it's caused from the stress. I ended up taking short-term disability and then long-term disability because I just couldn't deal with it.
These cases, when someone is murdered like this, I think a lot of people don't realize the ripple effect that it has and how it changes everyone that's connected their lives in some way.
Well, I pray for the mother. I do pray for the family, because the family, they were no different family than, barbecued backyards. He went to Penquist, Penrith, which is a private school. He had a little boy. This is the cockroach. They did say he was high on meth when he did this. He'd have to be, but he had the audacity to go to Home Depot and buy a saw and had the receipt in his pocket. So obviously he was not that mentally deranged. He knew what to do.
Has there been, I know you mentioned a little bit about not wanting to say too much for the trial. Has there been a motive established, or one that the police have released?
No. I keep trying to get that. They won't release anything to me because they're afraid. And what I'm telling you is only stuff that's publicized. I don't know anything more than what's on that newspaper.
It's got to, not that would make it any better, but just it seems like not even knowing a reason why this happened would be really frustrating.
Well, the cockroach told Floyd, the man that was killed, that he wanted to talk to Matthew and scare him a little bit. And so, according to what I heard, Floyd said, well, don't hurt him. He's my friend. And that's when they went their separate ways, and I think it was premeditated.
One more question about Floyd. So they arrest the one you call a cockroach, and so he's in jail, I take it, and then Floyd dies while he's in jail. Is that correct?
Right. Correct.
So is it possible that someone acting on the cockroach's behalf could have wanted to eliminate a witness and took him out?
I think that's definitely part of it, and that's why they don't want to talk to me about it.
Is it delaying or affecting a trial?
The COVID was. And last year, because it'll be 2 years in May. Last year they only did 22 jury cases because of COVID in that county. And this year, December 6th is when the trial is supposed to happen. Had all the dockets and all the dockets and all the dockets. And the prosecutor wants him to rot in hell. He's in jail right now. He's not in prison. But I do pray for the mom. He changed our lives. He ruined their lives.
Yeah. So many people all the way around. Just there's no good that comes out of
and she loves her son just as much as I love my son. But, I plan to be at the trial, hopefully. I haven't been going to the dockets because it's 50 miles one way. Yeah. And it's like a 5-minute docket. So.
Have they given you an indication of when the trial actually might happen?
December the 6th. The pre-trial is in October.
Okay.
And then December the 6th is according to what it says on the internet.
Are you looking forward to facing down your son's killer in court, or are you sort of dreading being in?
I'm dreading it. That makes my stomach crawl. But my son says, my older son says, I'm going to beat him up or something. And he took my brother, and they were close, and it's affected him. He's had to take some medicine and stuff like that.
Yes, so it's just all the way around. It's been bad for everyone. Do you hope to get, not that it will bring your son back, obviously, but do you hope to get answers and hear something that at least explains why this happened?
How can you, it's probably drug related or jealousy or something. I don't know, of a woman or something. I don't know. They won't tell me, and the cockroach told the police, he tried to kill me. And I wrestled the guns away. Well, like I said, there was no DNA or powder or anything on the gun of Matthews. When they arrested him, he, of course, immediately lawyered up. But on his jeans, he had blood and skin on his jeans. They DNA tested that, and it was Matthews.
It's kind of hard to explain because he's in his basement right there. I don't know what kind of explanation someone could give for that.
And it's a $300,000 house. You know, it wasn't a shack.
And I think that proves that, you know, bad people do bad things no matter what kind of home they live in, whether it's a fancy gated one or a shack, like you said.
Like Charles Manson, you know.
Yeah, I think we see this happen it can happen to anyone in any kind of financial position.
And the funny thing, he's on the jail's dating site. He has a dating app out there that talks about himself and how he's a good Christian man and he's being railroaded and you know, he loves women. He doesn't like, you know, he's not gay. He's just, and, you know, goes on about how wonderful he is. And he opens doors and brings flowers and has a son. And it's like, how do you get the right to have a dating site when my son's ashes are in my living room? You know, I can't celebrate. I mean, I would like to bury him sometimes. We were always hoping we'd find the rest of his body, but, you know, maybe at some point, but I don't think that's going to happen.
It's just horrible that he gets to go on and have some kind of life, even if it's behind bars, to be dating while you're wondering where your son's remains are. It just doesn't seem fair.
Died in he's not going to have a good life when they find out.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you want to remember Matthew for his life and not the way he died. When you think about him, what do you want people to take away? What do you want your son's legacy to be?
Well, he never met anybody that wasn't a friend. He befriended everybody, even if he thought they were his friend. He believed in God and Jesus. He loved people. And unfortunately, he got involved with drugs, him and his wife. That's why they had separated. Yeah,
and that's such a wide-scale problem.
This Cinco de Mayo, we did a balloon release last year. We're going to do a balloon release this year, too.
Well, I know it must have been a long road so far, and you've got a ways to go until December when that trial and court stuff happens. I do hope that you get justice for your son and get answers to any questions that you have.
Yeah, I try to pray to forgive him. I mean, I can't forgive him for what he did, but if I leave it built up in me, it's just going to destroy me more. You know, I can't hate him. You know, it could have been it could have been the opposite way. It could have been my kid doing it. Yeah. You know, instead of her kid doing it.
And that's, you know, somewhat, I don't know what the right word would be, but that's, you're seeing something clearly, even though your son's the victim in this case, you're looking at it through the possibility of things were reversed. You might be on, like, the cockroach's mother in this situation instead of where you find yourself.
Yeah, I can't imagine how she must feel.
Well, again, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to be hoping that you get answers in December when it does go to court, and hopefully you can focus on your health after that and getting better and living the best life you can. Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of The Murder of My Family. I'd like to thank Sonny Landon for writing and research assistance in this episode. As we wrap up, I'd like to play a preview for you of the true crime podcast California Dreaming. Be sure to give it a listen. We'll be back here soon with an all-new episode of The Murder of My Family, and I hope you'll join me for it. But before you go, remember that every murder victim means something to somebody.
California Dreaming is a true crime podcast launched in 2017 that delves into the dark side of the Golden State and sometimes beyond. Born and raised in California, I not only cover the crimes that have fascinated me over the years, but the ones that have fascinated you as well. With a backlog of hundreds of episodes and bonuses and dozens more on Patreon, you'll have countless hours to binge. And with soothing music and a unique, quiet intensity, you might just be lulled to sleep. Almost every episode is over an hour long, ad-free, with no loud bursts of music or audio clips. California Dreaming is available on all your favorite directories, so hit subscribe and give it a try. It just might be your new go-to bedtime podcast.